Hello, this is Kev, and this is Black Men Being Brutally Honest on this lovely cold day. And I'm here to tell you that I got some news for you. But before we get started, here's what I'd like for you to do. If you haven't, go below this screen, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, and let's get started. Okay, I just want you to check out this story right here, real quick. I found it very interesting. And what it does is it makes you question the power dynamic in our community, as far as our ability to be parents. So just wanted you to take this, look at this real quick. Stories about a Florida man named Daryl McCray. Looks like from the way they framed the articles and the reports, he went a bit overboard as far as disciplining his child. Say the child approached a school resources officer and said his dad beat him because of bad grades on Sunday. Now, I don't know whether this is a progress report or a report card or what, but he said the child stated that his dad made him take all his clothes off and beat him all over his body with a belt and left many whelps, bruises. Well, I mean, from what the school officials observed, left many whelps, bruises, and according to a couple of reports, some cuts too. So, just I want you to watch this news report right here, and I will give you my thoughts. Let me make some adjustments real quick.
One man is in jail now, accused of beating a child with a belt, hard enough to leave bruises, open cuts, and welts. The Escambia County Sheriff's Office says Daryl McCray struck the child with the belt at least 15 times because of his poor grades. The arrest report says the child had bruising and open wounds on his upper back and shoulder, injuries that were noticed by a school resource officer. McCray was arrested Monday and charged with cruelty toward a child. That boy is now in the custody of the Department of Children and Families.
It's winter, of course, but spring not that far away.
Spring break.
And we're back, and I started talking without reactivating the mic. And Rainy Woman says, "Free Daryl." Now, let me say this. When I first heard this story, it was just like business as usual. Because whenever I remember when I was a child, whenever I brought home bad grades, that's exactly what happened. I got a whooping. I mean, I wasn't forced to get butt naked or anything like that. I mean, sometimes I had to pull down my pants to the underwear, but that's just the way it was. My dad did most of it. I remember one from my grandmother and a couple of them from my mother, but my dad did most of it. And we never saw it as abuse. We never thought to approach child protective services and say, "Oh my God, I got abused by my parents," because we knew our parents did it out of love. Now, for in the case of Daryl McCray, I'm gonna tell you something my father told me once. Like once you have kids, if you do whoop your child, don't beat your child. No, no, he didn't say beat. He said don't whoop your child while you're angry. If that makes sense. If you whoop your child while you're angry, you're gonna end up hurting the child. And I think this is what Daryl McCray did. I think he ended up going a little bit overboard. I mean, I don't know. I'm not just I'm not just like saying this. I'm just saying like I don't have to do this to my child. It's like my daughter's sweet enough, and she knows when daddy is disappointed, and I don't have to resort to really hitting her. I do let her mother handle that, and her mother doesn't even go overboard and decide to, just go overboard with the whooping and, and the screaming. Because it's like, to me, if it gets to the point of injury, if the child is bleeding, then you went a little bit too far. I mean, whelps, schmelps, whelps heal. I mean, I'm not saying that this is that you shouldn't practice this. I'm not telling you how to discipline your child. All I'm saying is this: before you go into practices like that, you need to make sure that you're doing everything you can, and I mean everything, to make sure that make sure that your child is you're giving your child everything they need to make good grades, including looking at stuff like what they're bringing home. I'm already doing that. My daughter's in pre-K. I take her homework out. I look over it, and I sit there with her while she does it. And I don't, I also keep in mind that she's 5 years old, and I don't let her do a poor job. I don't. I was like, well, we're gonna work on writing your name a little bit better. Write that write get used to writing those letters, forward not backwards. Use those numbers. I mean, I wonder what he's doing all this for his child. Just because my mother and father would get emotional if they knew that they were doing stuff for me and I wasn't picking up on it anyway. It just didn't make any sense to them. Yes, I took quite a few whoopings. I've had quite a few whelps, but here's what you need to do if you want to whoop your child. Whoop them on the thickest parts of their body. Like hitting them in the face, that's wrong. That's abuse. Like they didn't say they found any whelps on his face though. But I've known some parents to, like with some of my friends when I was a kid, they get hit in the face with a belt. It's like that's no, don't do that. Make sure you hitting them on them hind quarters, and let them at least keep the pants on. This is not slave times. Okay, this is not 1920s Jim Crow era. Because I'm gonna let you in on a little something. Like depending on what area you stay in, things are a lot less dangerous things are a lot less dangerous now in that way than they were back then. Like they really didn't want kids to screw up back then because they might end up finding them somewhere in the middle of a forest. But times like that, they're gone. Like not gone because it still happens low key, but y'all know what I mean. Knowledgeable blacks know what I mean. For not bringing up too many conspiracies. But as far as this kind of thing goes, I think Daryl McCray was being a dad. I think he was being a dad. I think that he's probably the kind of man that does want what's best for his child. But don't just be whooping your child and then going in your room and not caring about what the child is, care about what the child is doing. And that's pretty much all I'm saying about that. I'm not inside his home. That report wasn't even a very detailed report. I mean, the framing of the conversation could be that he went and who knows, cuts. It might not even been cuts. That might have been something they just threw in. I mean, I see whelps, but this is the thing. You ain't got to make the child get butt naked. Okay, this is not the 1930s, 40s, 50s. Even so, like let me tell y'all a little story real quick, and then I'm gonna go ahead and leave this one alone. Um, my grandmother, no, my great grandmother, my granddad's mother, he had a brother that stayed out too long, and this was back in 1930s sort of. She tied him to a tree and beat him, and he never like once he got free from that tree. That same night, he packed up some things. He left and never returned. My family never saw him again. Well, my family back then, they weren't exactly my family. I wasn't born yet, but y'all know what I mean. Sometimes the abuse isn't worth it. These kids these days, with their indoctrinations and their social media, and the TV telling them every goddamn thing, they will have you arrested because this kid went to the authorities. Now, if the word gets out, you're gonna have a bunch of kids going to the authorities talking about, oh, my parents whooped me, when they just simply doing something to love you. That they Parents love you. Now, if it's abuse, it's abuse. I just don't think that Daryl McCray is an abuser. I just think he went overboard. He needs to be taught a lesson, but don't take his child away from him. Send him to an anger management class or something. Because no doubt, I believe that he whooped this child because he was angry. That's one thing that you should never do, because you end up hurting the child and you end up in situations like Daryl McCray ended up in, at the mercy of the court system. Because now it's up to them. It ain't up to him anymore. Just just whoop them on their hind quarters and just be done with it. Don't leave everybody. So you don't leave nothing visible, because then they call it abuse. And the last thing that I do want to see is a black man with his power and his ability to be a father taken away from him. So there. That's it for me. This is Kev. This is Black Men Being Brutally Honest. Please subscribe to the channel, like, share, and Kev We Trust. Goodbye.